Syrian army's push into rebel-held areas of Aleppo continues. Entire districts of Syria's largest city have been returning to government control for the first time in years, raising questions of whether this may be the beginning of the end of the nearly 6-year-old Syrian rebellion. VOA correspondent Luis Ramirez reports.
As Assad's forces, backed by their Russian allies, pound eastern Aleppo, the human suffering mounts, and so do questions about whether this signals the end is near for the Syrian insurgents. Some observers think so.
The loss of eastern Aleppo in its entirety would signal the beginning of the end of the rebellion, definitely.
Aleppo is the last major foothold, and rebel leaders insist that by retaining control of Idlib province and other parts of Syria, the fight is not ending.
I think it's still far from that, because what's happening in Syria is just another battle and the biggest fight there.
But the loss of Aleppo by the mostly Muslim Sunni rebel groups carries big symbolism, which in war is important. Some agree.
With the fall of Aleppo, the rebellion won't end overnight, but it will be dealt such a significant symbolic blow. This is, of course, Syria's biggest city. The rebels have held it since 2012, and it's very difficult to imagine how the rebellion would be able to, in the context of peace talks, present themselves as a credible political force without some hold in Aleppo.
Negotiations between Assad and the rebels have never gotten off the ground, and getting the actors to the table would now be even harder.
It will be pointless because the regime, when he was in a bad position, let's say a few years ago, he was not keen to really engage in a meaningful discussion on finding a solution to the conflict in Syria. So imagine right now when the regime has the upper hand and he thinks that he's winning the war there.
Where the conflict heads now depends on whether regional powers siding with the rebels step up their support and whether the various rebel factions manage to stop their infighting. With Russia showing no signs of letting up its fight on behalf of Assad, and the incoming U.S. leadership signaling a larger willingness to work with the Russians to end the Syrian conflict, the rebels appear to have fewer guarantees.